Los Angeles City College, April 1967. These men are computer experts, contributing their time and knowledge to the teaching of an accelerated course in computers and computer programming. These are the students, all mathematics teachers in the Los Angeles area. They have been selected from a large number of eligible teachers for this course in how to teach computing.
And when the chance came, I thought I'd better get on board. My students are asking questions that I can't answer.
Of course, I've read books about it, but you just can't teach it that way.
I figured it was about time I learned the practical side of this thing.
Can't just sit back and let it happen.
I wish they started this a lot sooner. Well, my principal put it pretty bluntly when he said, "It's your move."
This is Grant Carey, junior college specialist for the Los Angeles Board of Education. Mr. Carey has had extensive experience in educational TV and films.
What are they learning? Tell me. You told me a little bit over the phone, but that's why I'm here.
Yeah, I'm just going over some of this. You know, you talk to teachers all the time. You're always meeting with teacher groups. Why don't you come and meet with this group? Why don't you ask them what they think they're learning or what they indeed are learning?
Tell me what you've learned up to this point in the course. I'm curious to know what's been happening.
Goodness, we've learned so much. We've been so busy. I can't put my finger on one certain thing. I think mostly I've learned to fall in love with computers, a lot more than the computer information I've picked up. It's just great. It's really fascinating. Well, you know more about computers.
No, that's true.
Than I do.
No, to me, the computer is just a means towards an end, really. What I find fascinating about the course is the fact that we're getting insight into some of the horizons and getting close to some of the frontiers and seeing how this entire area is expanding so greatly and what this is going to mean in the near future with regard to the change in our culture.
Oh, yes. Mm-hmm.
If we were to call this a survey course, we'd be wanting to know the various areas that the computer is used in, and this is what we would probably be concerned with in the use of the computer.
This is one of the stages.
Fred Gruenberger, chief instructor for this workshop course, is a senior staff member of Informatics Incorporated. He is well known for his contributions in the field of computer education and training.
The first real advance was the invention here by a man named Oldner of a device that would allow you to insert numbers into a machine by means of pins. Tremendous advance. There hasn't been any such idea in the world before. By moving a pin which releases a certain number of teeth on a gear, you have the ability to enter a number 6 into a rotating mechanism. Coupled with another idea, the carry mechanism that allows one wheel.
We've seen an object lesson in good teaching.
That is great.
In the use of audio-visual materials and the use of all kinds of techniques to elicit good responses from students.
Oh, yeah, right. In other words, what you want to say is we want to truncate.
Roger Mills, responsible for computer training at TRW Systems Incorporated, brings his own unique approach to programming instruction.
When I say right, I mean close enough for government work. This is not 1, 6, 4, 5, 2. Everybody agree with that multiplication?
Yes, sir. Very good.
This is here. What's there? And a blessed thing. What have I said I'm going to do? I'm going to throw away this. All right? Does everybody understand this? This is the way you truncate. You lie.
I was reading through them, and everything was going along nice. I knew what it was talking about. I understood, and I think it was right at the end of this list of notes, it said, the purpose of computing is insight. What on earth are they talking about?
We're not interested in moving numbers around in a machine. We're interested in finding out what happens when those numbers get moved around.
Bob White, also of Informatics Incorporated, is presently working on real-time programming for the nation's space effort. He is a past chairman of the Education Committee of the Los Angeles ACM chapter.
It's very easy to get overly enamored of the computer, and we have an awful lot of people who are slaves to the computer, and they forget what it's for, and this is what it's for. The computers themselves can be different. They're designed with different ideas in mind, but the logic of computer programs stays pretty much the same. Once you learn to program one computer, regardless of what kind of computer it is, digital computer generally, you will be able to very easily pick up the programming for another machine.
A brand new door that has been opened wide unto me, because in the past I haven't had such a good look at computers as I have in this course.
And the ability to do arithmetic that these machines have developed came together in a machine that went on the air in 1944, August 22nd, 1944.
Here was something that I still don't know how it works, but I can get answers.
The heart, then, of a computer is storage. The main element is storage. We want to be able to store an enormous amount of information. In quite a few cases, the amount of data that we want to juggle is far outshadowed by the amount of numbers that tell what to do with it. This is a storage device for 256 bits of information. Bit. That's the smallest unit of information. A bit. It's either there or it isn't. On or off. Present or absent. Plus or minus. 1 or 0. These all mean the same thing. This gadget was supposed to be able to store 256 bits.
I still don't know what makes a electrical impulse do the things that
Art, how many people drive an automobile and can't take the transmission apart the way you do on a weekend?
Well, that's true. What's inside of the computer is not my forte, you might say.
This particular machine has storage for 20,000 digits. So the heart of the machine is storage. 20,000 little boxes jump.
There's 20,000 bits that can be stored.
20,000 decimal digits.
Oh, they're not bits.
Each
Because
of
I
them
was thinking that
could be 6 bits long.
that answers the question. Because I couldn't see how you're going to get a number 2.
I have been so full of this material that's come out of this course that at times I found myself waking up at night thinking about, now how shall I approach this problem? I have had my insights into many problems enlarged because of the way that you have to analyze a problem to approach the computer effectively.
The way to learn computing is to compute. And from the beginning of the course, the teachers were encouraged to get hands-on experience with the 2 machines available. The 5 instructors gave help and guidance, but the goal, as with any introductory class, was to get them to write the instructions and follow through the running of their programs.
How about that? We got certainly more than half of the ones I looked at were in apple pie order a couple of minutes ago, and we got several of them run on the machine. So some of you have actually run a computer today.
Before coming into this course, I felt some diffidence.
Our eyes are pretty well opened up to the many things that apparently are going to happen in the future that we might not have thought of before. And certainly we're going to be able to project this in the classroom. I'm sure I certainly feel that I will.
How do we go about teaching teachers to teach computing?
These teachers had a dual job. First, they had to learn computing. This part of the course was traditional and concentrated. But from the beginning, they were challenged with a second task, exploring how to teach computing to high school students.
P and that sort of stuff. There's the mechanical details, and we'll try to relieve you of most of those, so you don't worry about them. We want to find out what computers are used for.
The example about the primes today, where the differences between primes, and he's beginning to study this particular distribution, and suddenly you're finding out new things about numbers. You know, the fact that you got an answer to your first question, it becomes kind of trivial.
Yeah.
Because now you have all these wonderful new questions.
You have 100 new questions.
Right.
So then we start factoring at this point and going forward until we come to a prime.
Tom Parkin, Director of Computation for the Aerospace Corporation, El Segundo. Mr. Parkin is a well-known contributor to the field of number theory. His appearance as a guest lecturer at this workshop was intended to provide a view of advanced computing work currently in progress.
Appearance of a gap of that size, and that point then becomes P sub A to start the algorithm over.
A computing technique that was pioneered by von Neumann himself, called flowcharting, is beginning to creep into everyday life. We arrange the logic of a problem solution in a blueprint called a flowchart.
It had been pointed out to me in the past that a flow diagram would be a good way, a good teaching technique, but it was emphasized.
Yes, we've tried it in Geometry 1 proofs. It's really great.
To list the various cases and take that?
No, to just develop the proof this way, you know, with the little squares and triangles, you know, decision, what if this happens, what if this should.
Mr. Gruenberger says we've got everything programmed ready for you to code, and before we start coding, we'll take a coffee break. There's coffee next over here.
Total class time was only 32 hours. During the coffee breaks, discussions among the teachers and between the teachers and the instructors went on to clear up obscure points and to provide the instructors with feedback on how the material was being received.
Well, Fred, what have you attempted to set up in this course? What have you attempted to actually do?
Well, you remember, Grant, we started out at the request of the school board to give them advice on how to get computers into the secondary schools. And our advice, first of all, was to plan ahead, that the real bottleneck is the training of the teachers.
Could you duplicate this kind of a course if you were asked to teach it without so much equipment?
I don't think we would want to, because of course this was aimed at assuming professionals in the field of teaching, and a lot of things were taken for granted. You've handled this problem. You're not going to go out and implement the same material again for the youngsters. What I found missing in the course was direct relations. Of course, we're going to have to make the transfer as to how can I take a youngster who's having difficulty with mathematical concepts and use some of these techniques to possibly reach him. That flow diagramming is one technique. It's possible to teach some aspects of programming without having a hands-on computer at hand, but having that equipment certainly is a highly motivating factor.
I want you to notice that this is going to stop. If you look back there, notice that Mr. White's arms never leave his sleeves. It stopped all by itself. What stopped it? The number got bigger. You couldn't add and put it back in the same place. It wanted to create a 13-digit number in a 12-digit bucket. Overflow. A little light comes on, the machine stops. We can't do it.
This is a classic example of how a classroom should operate. I look at how much time do I waste. I've been analyzing this quite a bit. These people around here become very nervous if the class makes them wait 30 seconds after the beginning time.
I know teachers that are like that too. I think probably at least one or two of you have pulled that same stuff. Some principles of programming.
Stuart Schaefer, Senior Programming Analyst at System Development Corporation. He is chairman of the Education Committee of the San Fernando Valley ACM chapter.
I'm going to spend just a short time today trying to talk a little bit in
The team teaching approach that was used usually had one of the 5 instructors leading the class through some key topic and discussing with them the implications of that topic as they might later use it with classes of their own. This procedure left the other 4 instructors free to help the one teaching, or frequently free to argue at length about how computing should be taught.
Simple flow chart.
How much more could I do, and how much more teaching could I do if I had the support that this instructor had here? Always somebody in the background that was an assistant, more or less, to keep the the instructional program going with the least amount of interruptions.
On each card, there is a number. A very simple task for you. Arrange them in ascending sequential order.
But the problem really, can you describe it to someone?
Don Crable, in charge of computing at Santa Monica City College. He has had 4 years' experience in training pre-college students in computing.
Let's see if anyone can describe to me exactly and precisely, concise terms, how they arrange. Relay to me, and I'll play the part of the automaton. I'll do what you tell me to. Just exactly, precisely.
Okay, pick one out at random. Okay, now compare that, assume they're in some sort of order, and
look at the first card. I have a terrible emotional problem. My ear turns red. That's my textile light. So when you start to quiver, that means I don't know what to do. All right. We take out the
first card.
First card. You want to start over, restart.
Pick up the first card. Replace the white card where the pink card is. And put the pink card back where the white card was.
So you're going to have to tell me where to begin.
Okay, then go back to the beginning. And pick out all those that have a 1.
You know what I'm really doing? I'm helping you.
Well, you're reading each card. Wait a minute,
You see part of the problem that we're beginning to run into here?
No, I can't get you to stop. That's
right.
Noted the success of the people who designed this course in leaving you when you leave this room on Saturday at the close of the class with a sense of tension. A sense of tension and a sense of concern that sends you your head is just full.
Now, admittedly here in Los Angeles, we've had a tremendous advantage. As you'll see, we have 5 instructors working here, all well trained.
What you first probably want to do is get a value to that integer number to a variable. You got an error message. You've got a mixed mode over here, they call it.
Now, when they go back to 1 and they get to this position again,
And we should have something to start with in all cases as a common reference point, and 0 would be the common reference point.
Well, what you have to do is take the product of 2 fields, that's in 99. You did it. Now you have to store that in X squared. Right.
anyway, it's a 9. It's about problem. I didn't finish my homework.
I'm going to change my increment.
It was less than you changed.
They started with a machine language that this computer here understands. That was the last chapter in our textbook. And I said, I wonder what's behind this. And I later understood because all of the other languages, when they fit into this machine, must convert whatever language it is into that machine language. And that language was highly, if you couldn't understand that language, you can forget understanding future languages. And if you can understand that language, then the other languages became simple.
We started you out from the bottom up. We opened the little black box on the machine to show you how it looks on the inside. You realize immediately that we have interaction with the pathology of the machine. You're all wrapped up in terrible details like where is the flag, what will this operation do, the sort of stuff that you don't want to pay any attention to. Let me put it this way, when you're dealing at that level and you want to solve a problem, you're spending
better than 90% of your time worrying about the machine and the system and less than 10% of the time on your problem. We took you up 2 levels. In assembly language, we can take off some of that burden because what assemblers do is bookkeeping. They take care of the bookkeeping details for you. Fortran goes a step further and takes care of much of the nuisance. But notice it still has an enormous number of rules. You must do it this way. You must remember that numbers have this characteristic, and you can't goof it. If you do it wrong, everything blows up. You don't get anywhere. Now, I want to show you what's going to happen at the next higher level. Next week, we are going to install 4 time-sharing terminals, which is one of the modern developments in the field. We're going to bring in the room across the hall, remote terminals connected to big computers elsewhere by telephone lines.
Uppercase, P-O...
There are some details, to be sure, as Jim Babcock explains to Beryl Lindsay.
Uppercase C, then lowercase HIP. Close parenthesis.
What's the...
Carriage return. Carriage return is a signal to the computer that you have a complete message ready, okay? Now you have a clean memory.
But what we use is say 4, F-O-R.
F-O-R, right hand?
4, I'm going to write that up, 4. And, of course, hit the return button to return control to the computer.
Two, T-O. Whoops. Okay, we made a mistake, so we can delete that last character by depressing the control button.
Yeah.
Yeah, hold it down and type an A.
No, O.
No, an A. Okay, that deletes the last character.
Yeah.
Okay, now we can continue. Now we want to... O.
Yeah, there's a lot of things built in here, such as a stop.
Oh, yeah. Exit 10. Stop. Stop.
The first characteristic that you will notice on these things is that they have taken off almost all the burden of detail. It is almost all gone. With such systems, with a matter of perhaps 20 minutes of familiarizing yourself with their keyboard and their own special little rules, from then on, you can devote like 99% of your attention to a problem and 1% to detail. It turns the whole thing upside down. It's a different world, and it's a modern world, and it's the kind of world that you might be interacting with very shortly. It's probably the way in which computing is going to enter our secondary schools.
And 1.2 would be type action.
Make sure that it knows its command.
That's not good enough. Do it 10 more times. I mean, you're interacting with the system in line. And therefore, you don't have to have the entire program written in advance.
Yes, that's the whole point.
That's the beauty of time sharing.
The secret here is time sharing. You are sharing the machine through these terminals with a lot of other users simultaneously, and in the crudest possible terms, the central processor is going ring around the rosy with all the users, servicing them one at a time, taking care of their needs on demand, giving them what they want, and getting rid of them. We've capitalized as far as we can on the facilities we have here. We have 2 computers, 2 lab assistants furnished by the school board. There's a closed-circuit TV set up in there that's just a joy to work with. Sort of thing that you can do here because we have so much of this gear around us. But we think it could be done almost anywhere. In almost any town there is a computer. There are certainly computer people, if not, in fact, an ACM chapter located there. And computer people will come a-running if you'll ask.
How would you go about getting a course in the teaching of computing started?
Are we going to talk about a course teaching computing, or are we going to talk about utilizing computing to teach?
They're all different courses.
Write a proposal and present it to the decision makers and
where would you get help? Where could you get...
Oh, I think we would have a cadre of computer-oriented people coming right out of this institute.
There seems to be something innate in the business of becoming familiar with the value of the computer that develops the fact that you're going to become thrilled enough about yourself and its possibilities that you couldn't convey to a school board unless you did have this kind of information. So I think the essential is, of course, that before you can convince anyone, you have to know something about it yourself.
One way would be to let them know the great, overwhelming uses to which computers are presently being put. I had not the slightest notion about the great array of things computers are presently doing. And once they understood how important computers are in our world of technology, in our modern world, I believe that they would understand that it might be a desirable thing to have them as a part of our math program.
So we see that as a result of the pace of change these days, a pace which is greatly influenced by the use of computers in so many applications, that men must view education as something which continues throughout their lifetimes and not something which ends when what we think of today as their days of formal education is completed.
Paul Armour, Associate Department Head of the RAND Corporation's Computer Sciences Department, spoke to the teachers about the social implications of the computer revolution. He is Vice President of the American Federation of Information Processing Societies.
Educational institution for this continuing education.
If we could convince them, and I think we could do it, that computers furnish a means of improving pupils' understanding of the things that we're trying to teach.
So the message we're trying to get across to other school boards is that this is the way to go, perhaps not exactly the pedagogical route that we followed, but at least to think about how computers should be in our schools before they get there.
The computers are becoming more and more important in our culture.
Surely would be very successful in breaking down this notion that there is one way to do a problem.
You don't understand the problem until you've got a program well enough to run on the machine. Then somebody here said, now throw it out and do it right.
Making sure the students know what the question is.
In a math lab today, you've got to have a computer. What's the point in sitting there and trying to rotate an ellipse for 45 minutes and then find out that I did it wrong? Shucks, tomorrow we start over again, kids.
Right.
If I can teach and infuse tension and suspense into my teaching and motive, if I can develop materials that will do that, I shall have it made.
Written documentation of the course material shown here is available from the American Federation of Information Processing Societies, AFIPS, 345 East 47th Street, New York.